ready to go live. And here we are. It's just me and him to start with. So it seems a perfect opportunity whilst we wait for the tardy ones, because we've got quite a good guest tonight. I do hope he comes along. And I hope those of you that read my comments earlier have done your duty reading. So, drones in the tent. Oh, hang on. Here's Brian. Here he is at the stage, and look out below. Hello, good evening, Brian. And I'm not sure who. Look out, there he is. There he is. Right, we'll put Brian up there. Brian is just remaining anonymous.
Brian, that's salt and water, isn't it?
I don't actually have a webcam on my PC at home, and I can't be asking my iPad out. So
no worries.
I'm saving you from a view. Don't worry.
It's an element of mystery and intrigue, isn't it? That's for sure.
There's plenty of videos on me. Don't worry.
Yes, and I watched a very, very good one earlier today. How's it, Bruce? How are you doing? How's life?
It's 2024 and all as well.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I saw your report from your future, and I also reported in slightly from the future for everybody else. It seems so far so good. Well, not if you're in the aviation trade, but maybe we'll come on to that later. It's been a pretty poor year, pretty poor start already. We've had several accidents down here, several fatalities.
Were drones involved with it? Was it drones?
No.
Oh, not drones. Oh,
no. Just completely and utterly human error. Very, very, very sad.
Speaking of completely and utterly human, here's Ian.
And he's Ian. He's not talking. He's not going to be rabble roused by that.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just waiting for a comment about me being late. I'm just disappointed.
Oh yeah. Well, it's what we've come to expect. Hello, Carl. Hello, everybody that's in the comments. Right, let's get straight down to it. We're very lucky Brian has joined us, and if you're in the UK, there was a documentary on last night, or not a documentary, a TV show on ITV, and it was about a post office scandal that's happening over there, or has happened over there, and that's whereby a computer system basically fell over, and all sorts of decent and honest people have been done over by the post office about it. Now, that's as well as maybe the amazing thing. Someone's got a video on in the background here. The amazing thing to come out of it is the rules surrounding computer data, and of course we, being who we are, all know that remote ID is coming in, and we're all wondering what's going to happen with that data. So that's a really poor introduction. Brian, do you want to take it from there and lead me by the hand through the Youth Justice and Criminal Evidence Act of, was it 2020?
1999. Yeah, so just going quickly back to the post office scandal. It's actually a 4-part drama. It's actually the second part's literally just started just now, but I watched it all the other day, so it's fine. But so in 1984, the legislators in this country, they saw fit to realise the computers were coming about. Obviously, 1984, computers were still very much in infancy. To give you some idea, in 1999, when the Horizon IT system was rolled out, only 30% of UK households had internet access. The most popular phone in 1999 was the 3320 by Nokia. WAP wasn't even a thing. So 1984, when they introduced the computer, when they introduced the computer, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, they obviously put in controls, and those controls were pretty straightforward. And I mean, you can look them up. In fact, let me just stick in that chat there. What I was putting, comments or private chat? Comments. I have to join it, don't I? Of course I do.
Yeah, either one you can, or you can even present it.
Private chat, and then Gary can bring it up later.
Okay, that's fine. So there's a link to the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984, Section 69, and pretty much it basically says, look, you can't introduce evidence from any computer record. In any proceedings, a statement or in a document preceded by a computer should not be admissible as evidence or of any fact stated therein unless it is shown that there was no reasonable grounds for believing the statement is inaccurate because of improper use of a computer. Yeah, there you go. And basically, you had to prove that the computer was working properly. That simple. And even though that's quite a long time ago before computer proliferation came about, it was very future looking. And whilst I'm sure we could probably go a lot further than that, there's some very sensible controls straight in there. Just with, it's up to you to prove that the computer wasn't impaired at the time of its operation. That's simple. If you want to use evidence from it, how do you know it's working properly? And the problem with that is that slowed down prosecutions. And in 1995, and I'll send you another thing. So if you watch my talk, I've done an updated version, but it hasn't been published yet. And what I've done with the updated version was I have put on the screen a number, and that number refers to a link. And I've got to remember how to use my computer. It's harder than it looks. Copy the link. And there's the link. So this is a page I've set up with loads of stuff on it. But in the top left-hand section, you'll see B-Sides Newcastle talk from September, which basically is an updated version of the talk I think you would have watched earlier, Gary. There's a few other bits come into it because literally I was doing it I was updating it at midnight the night before the talk because there was some there's a judicial inquiry going on at the moment. There was evidence being presented. So that top right hand corner there, if you just go to show all where it says show 97 underneath the B-Sides Newcastle on the top left hand side.
Oh, top left. Sorry, I was doing the other left. There we are.
As you can see there, these are all the links pretty much to everything I talk about in that talk. So basically, just prove I wasn't making any of it up. Now, if you look at number 3 there, there's several number 3s. They're all the letters. Okay. They're the letters from. Don't go to that because they've got rid of the links now. Go back to. Click on any one of the ones other than number 3s, and they actually take you straight to the letters from the post office, from the DTI, Inland Revenue, BT. Yeah, they all wrote to the Law Commission, basically saying, "Listen, that Police and Criminal Evidence Act stuff. Yeah, I tell you what, it ain't half hampering prosecutions. It's causing us no end of grief. We're going to have to prove stuff." And they all wrote to the Law Commission, and the Law Commission took that all on board because anyone in the UK can launch a private prosecution against another person. Obviously, you still got to go through the proof of, burden of proof and stuff like that. It's a criminal court beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why it doesn't really happen very often. But the post office, the reason why the post office scandal happened was they didn't go through the police or the CPS. The first question the police or the CPS would have gone when there's missing money is, where's the money? Has a crime actually taken place? Unfortunately, the post office didn't think like that, and they just the post office have the oldest investigation department in the world. From 1793, and so they're a bit above themselves, if I'm honest. And so they just launched private prosecutions against these postmasters based on the evidence that Horizon was giving. And obviously, we know that the Horizon system, should we say, was less than accurate. Let's put it that way. It was suboptimal, and so this money simply just didn't exist. And so the problem in 1999 when Horizon was released. The 1999 Youth Justice Act was it was signed off in September 1999 and enacted in March the 24th, 2000. It actually became law, and that basically meant that all the protections you had under Section 69 or PACE, i.e., if you wanted to take it to court, if you want to use any evidence from a computer, you have to make sure that it was performing as expected. Basically, what it done by repealing that is I can introduce any evidence from a computer, and if you want to disagree with it, that's fine. But now you have to prove that the computer was impaired at the time of its operation, not me. If you want to argue about it, it's fine. Prove it.
And just to jump in there, you've got your hands tied with that because if we take the post office as the example. You as a person being prosecuted, you don't have access to that system. You don't have access to the bug list. You're kept outside of that. And so you're reliant on any of their honesty, of which we've seen there was very little.
Absolutely, yeah.
To be able to deal with that.
It's even worse than that, is that the post office, even when they had evidence of issues with Horizon, which they had plenty, there was plenty of, I'm sorry if any of you work for Fujitsu, it's your own fault. You shouldn't. They're a horrible company, and I really recommend that basically you go and do something else, whatever it is. Seriously, I would never work for them. They had meetings with the post office explaining some of the problems, explaining the remote access. it's something ridiculous. I mean, the post, the Fujitsu had remote access to Horizon terminals. They had the ability to go onto any one of the terminals. There was 11,500 post offices, about 34,000 terminals across the whole of the UK. They had the ability to go into any one of those terminals at system level, system admin level, and amend, create, or delete any transaction without postmaster being aware that someone's actually logged onto their machine. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Just to jump in at this point, the point you're making here is a good one. Is that effectively, and it's good practice on any system, and should be there by default, is you should have an audit trail and one that's robust and explains exactly what was happening. So I think in your talk you mentioned even when they did put an audit in, it only said logged on, logged off, and didn't say the actions.
Yeah, privileged user accounts, 2009 to 2015. They introduced these privileged user accounts. So for those 6 years, when an admin logged onto a terminal, any terminal, the action of logging on as an admin or escalated privileges was recorded. So, Brian logged on. Now, what Brian did whilst he was logged on as an admin, we didn't record that. That's mental. But don't forget that Horizon was a financial system. It was connected to other financial systems. It was connected to the National Lottery. It was connected to banks. It was connected to other government departments. Just the very fact of having any computer system of any size now of adequate logging, I'm sorry, but I'm sure most of you guys will come from technical backgrounds, and that is just why would you do that? You just simply wouldn't do that. Even for your own protection, you wouldn't do it. And so in 2015 they sorted that out and they actually started logging admin actions now. That was one of the figures. They could do that, but the other problem as well is that basically Horizon couldn't count. It used to do lots of strange and interesting things. And what's really worse, it wasn't one individual bug. It was thousands of them. In fact, they started naming bugs after where they've been found, and they were doing 4 to 5 releases to production a day. I've worked on large environments, and getting one release out a week or a month is mate. Even if it's just the Microsoft patches, trying to get those through test, and then basically persuade the change board to get them to there's a full stop missing, and they were doing 4 to 5 changes a day. So nothing was getting tested.
I was going to say, it sounds with that frequency that what they were effectively doing was testing in production. They were changing the live system without all the steps that should take place. Because, like you're saying, normally you would test a number of bugs over a release, and that would go in as one block.
They would go into individual machines and change individual machines, but they also release wider changes, and that wider change would affect the whole estate. Now the problem is if you're updating stuff, and an update doesn't go through because the network's down, the machine's off or whatever. Don't forget when the Horizon was first released, they were using ISDN. ADSL wasn't a thing back then. So some of the problems were caused by dodgy power. Some of these post office specialty rural ones had dodgy power. Some of them had dodgy network connections. I don't mean DNS, unfortunately. They actually were proper network connections, which are not that best. And so what was happening was, if you had a branch with more than one terminal in, one of the terminals was supposed to take the transactions to the other one and send it off when they all arrived and the networks are back up and running. But what more often what would happen is there'll be a double transaction, or a transaction would get lost, or it'll just make up transactions. There was no rhyme or reason to the issues with Horizon. It was just thousands of different things. And when they eventually got these things called known error logs and pinnacles and peaks, which were basically defect records in the court in 2019, there were hundreds of thousands of them. They were literally playing whack-a-mole, sending stuff out the door. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, a computer system of its size is always going to have issues, but it shouldn't have been having the issues it was having.
Just to jump in with this, if I understood correctly on the talk that you did on this, I got the impression that some of the Fujitsu staff had actually given evidence to these cases, saying that they weren't aware of any bugs, when even like a week earlier they'd been involved in emails or on bugs where they knew about them.
Yeah, I mean, if you go one fantastic document which kind of tells you everything you need to know about this, What number is it? It is number. Oh, hang on, my computer's frozen. There's a piece of evidence which was from 2010. So 2010 was when I first found out about 2000. The case that first drew me attention to the post office to me was a case of a lady called Seema Misra. Seema Misra was jailed for 9 months for stealing £76,000. Now, Seema Misra her and her husband had a post office, and it was working fine. So they got a second post office because they were doing well, and their plan was eventually, at the end of the day, come to their retirement time, was to sell up and return to India and enjoy life. It wasn't until they got the second post office they started having the issues. Initially, they thought staff were stealing and stuff like that, but eventually it got stupid. She was eventually suspended in 2008, and with lots of legal ramblings. Her case is actually pretty bad. So she eventually went a 3-week trial, and during her trial, 3 Fujitsu employees stood up and gave evidence to say how robust Horizon was, and how there couldn't be any problems that could have affected her, because the Horizon's robust. One of them was a guy called Gareth Jenkins, who was also a solutions architect for Horizon. At the end of her 3-week trial, she was given a prison sentence of 9 months. She was given 13 months. She served 9 months. She was a little over 8 weeks pregnant. I think she was about 10 weeks pregnant, and it was her son's 10th birthday. She was sent to prison. And I kind of thought that was kind of thing. So the interesting one that with that is number 63. Number 62 is kind of a derivative to it. So number 60. So this is a letter. This is an email. So this is a document, a minute from a document from. So Gareth Jenkins was there, and this is describing the receipts and payments mismatch error. Now this is between Fujitsu and the post office at a Bracknell building for Fujitsu called Bracknell 01. Really ugly building in Bracknell. And as you can see, it basically goes on to say, what's the issue? Well, discrepancies can occur, but what's happening is when the postmaster every week balances the till would balance and show no errors. But what was actually happening was there were errors. So sometimes these discrepancies would not show for several weeks. So, you completely blissfully aware. I think what should have been the highlight here was, the till was actually balancing. That should have been the indicator here. But if you scroll down, they actually go through several issues which could possibly fix this issue. So there's the impact. The most important thing you have to understand about the Horizon scandal for the post office was it was about the reputation of the post office. The post office has been around since 1660. It's older than the UK, and it was all about protecting its reputation. Until about 2 years ago, the post office had on their website the UK's most trusted brand. They removed it for many reasons. But Horizon was everything to them. Every transaction that went through any post office had to go through Horizon. So if Horizon was deemed to be a bit dodgy, all these external companies they were dealing with, so people buying mobile phone credit, people paying their tax, people buying road fund license, going to get the pension, using it as a bank, buying stamps, they would lose confidence and it wouldn't use it. And the other companies, they most certainly wouldn't touch it, would they? Because you want your computer system attached to that, would you? And so they did everything they could to have to protect the reputation of the post office, and that meant protecting the reputation of Horizon. And it was widely known it could cause loss of confidence in the Horizon system by branches, and it could cause other branches to blame Horizon for future discrepancies. Well, yeah, guess what? But if you go to the third page, you'll see it gives now some options as to solutions how we can fix this issue. The first one is that basically Fujitsu can manually write an entry value, which basically means remote access. So we know that in 2010, we know that Fujitsu, because this meeting here was held on October the 4th, 2010, we know that Fujitsu were presenting remote access to the post office as an option. So we know the post office know that remote access to the Horizon terminals wasn't possible. 2015, roll forward to 2015, if you will, for one moment. Paula Vanells, who was the chief executive officer of the post office, was standing in front of a select committee at Parliament. So it's effectively a Congress meeting if you're in the States, and telling Parliament, which is effectively a court, that her remote access wasn't possible. She was standing next to a guy called Ian Watkins, who works for a company called Second Sight. Second Sight were forensic investigators who were looking into this, and he's just laughing at her, saying, "No, it is, because they found this document a couple of years previously."
Jump in for 1 second, a question with that.
Sorry.
When you're saying Parliament's a court, does this mean if there's a parliamentary committee and someone's giving evidence there that they're expected to tell the truth? I mean, is there an equivalence of perjury for
there is, unfortunately, but normally during a normal parliamentary committee, it's just held as we're all adults. We expect you to tell the truth. What they can do, if they don't think you're actually being entirely truthful, they did this last year with the Royal Mail's chief executive. They got him to sign in, and then they got him to swear an oath on the Bible, as you would do in a normal court. At that point, then, now you're committing perjury because you're now on oath. Normally select committees don't start with a swearing on oath because they kind of expect you to be telling the truth. So yes, it is a court, but only if you're sworn in. So
okay, the reason I was asking that was just a parallel where there was the chief constable of Sussex Police, and he was in a parliamentary defence committee, and he left them with the impression there was never any video of the Gatwick drone, where we know there was, and it was likely a police drone. So I was really just trying to wonder.
Yeah, no. So only
bothered, but for what you're saying, you're quite allowed to get away with that.
Yeah, I mean, what they can do, they can then basically recall you and ask you to swear, and then ask you the questions again. At that point, then you're looking at perjury. So we know that Fujitsu had that capability in 2010, and this is literally this was 2 weeks before Seema Misra's trial. Now Gareth Jenkins is standing there telling their customer, telling their customer that we can do remote access. But straight away, there's reasonable deniability that did anyone else have access to your computer? Well, yeah, every Fujitsu admin had access to my bloody computer. Well, there's your reasonable doubt straight away. But he stood up and said, no, we're known issues. Here he is, 2 weeks prior to her, telling not only you've got remote access, but also there is a known issue affecting multiple branches. 2 weeks later, he's in court standing there saying, yeah, the system is robust. There is nothing possibly that could have done it. Now, what's really annoying by that is in 2019, March 2019, the group litigation order started, which is with a big court case. The post office spent £117 million defending it. The sub postmasters, they spent £57 million for a company called Freeze, like a pay-as-you, no win, no fee. And so the post office were literally spending the amount of money. They had run out of money effectively, and they had to settle, but they had won the case. Now, what's really interesting about that case is in 2019, they didn't. One of the things the post office didn't do, as this Seema trial there that shows, they didn't disclose a lot of evidence that was relevant to the defence. Now, as an expert witness, as the Fujitsu employee Gareth Jenkins, he was presented as an expert witness. Now, in the UK law, there's two different types of witnesses. There's witness of fact and there's an expert witness. Witness of fact is you're there to describe what you saw. So if you saw a blue car, you turn up and say, did you see a blue car? Yes, I did. Can you identify that blue car? No, but it was blue. Fantastic. That's all you're ever going to be asked, because you're a witness of fact. I just want you to confirm what you saw. I don't want an opinion from you because you're not an expert. I just need to tell me what you saw. The second type of witness is an expert witness. Now, an expert witness changes the game somewhat. And being an expert witness, your duty is not to your client, be that defense or the prosecution. Your duty is an officer as a court, is to the court. Just the same way as a solicitor, a barrister, or any legal professional. You may be being paid for and you may be arguing on behalf of, but if you know something that could undermine your case, it could destroy your case, you are duty bound as an officer of the court to tell the court, however bad it affects your case. And
so in this case, that hasn't happened, has it? If you've got someone that's worked with Horizon, knows there's issues and hasn't brought that up, then that's broken down, hasn't it?
Well, yes, and that's why he's been interviewed 3 times by the police for perjury under caution. And it wasn't just him. There's another lady, Anne Chambers. She's been interviewed twice on the caution. I expect many other Fujitsu employees will be as well, because yes, they weren't necessarily doing the best. Now, what really the undoing of this was something called the Clark advice, and just try and get the number for you. It's here somewhere. Where's the Clark advice? The Clark advice comes in. The Clark advice is quite devastating. Now, the worst thing about the Clark advice, and there's no difference to the rest of the court cases, is that second side briefing, correct. Okay, I'll find that Clark advice in a minute. I think it's near the bottom. But the what basically happened was the post office weren't disclosing information as they should have been doing so. Second Sight come along in 2012 as an independent forensic accountant, and they got told that the post office said to them, "Oh, we'll give you anything you need, don't worry about it." And the idea was the post office thought they were either going to be incompetent or pay lip service to them, give Horizon a complete, overhaul, and everything was safe and life is good. Unfortunately, Ian Henderson and Ron Wilmington are not stooges, and they're extremely talented and good at what they do. And when they released their first Second Sight briefing, it caused loads of issues. Post office immediately rebuked everything they come about with. And the second brief that they released in 2015, it had loads of information on it. But what it didn't have in it was, why didn't I put the Clark advice in there? I said to put the Clark advice in there. The Clark advice is number 25. So when they first released the first Second Sight interim report in 2013, the post office was quite spooked by it, because it was like, whoa, they're onto us, effectively. So the Clark advice was Simon Clark. He worked for a company called Cartwright King. He was one of their external counsels, and he was given several cases to review. Now, this document wasn't revealed in the 2019 group litigation order. It was withheld.
Taking some time to arrive, but it's not coming. It's taking too long.
Let's see if it opens on my one. Okay, well, yeah, it's taken. I'm not too sure why that's not loading. Okay, don't worry. So basically, the Clark advice basically went on and it went through these cases, and eventually it basically said at the end of it that the expert witness they've been using, Gareth Jenkins, and to be honest, he was aware of bugs. Unfortunately, they are still winning government contracts left, right, and centre. You'd love to have them. I'd love to have them not have a contract, but the problem is people working for them will just go to the next company. It's a weird. I've worked with Fujitsu, not for them, but with Fujitsu teams. I've never known any person from Fujitsu to receive external training. They don't train their staff while on the job. But so the Clark advice basically said, look, that guy, Gareth Jenkins, we've been using this expert witness. Honestly, I don't think he's really fulfilled his role as an expert witness, because he didn't tell the court things he knew, which may have basically affected the outcome of the case, which would be negative. More so, it's highly likely that there's been some miscarriage of justice, and we should contact the courts of appeal to have a look at that, because if he hasn't disclosed what he should have disclosed, those convictions could have been unsafe. Now, literally, if you look at the conviction rates, the conviction dates of when they were prosecuting people from 1999 through to 2013, literally it's the week after that Clark advice landed at the post office. That Clark advice was seen by the board. It would have been seen by Paula V. Nels. Does it go down further? I think that's Nick Wallace's page, isn't it? Yeah. There you go. So you can see 2013 when the Clark advice dropped, something happened. 1999, Horizon's actually issued, numbers go up, then suddenly it stops.
I mean, that in itself was the indicator that something was wrong, was when convictions jumped up as soon as Horizon came in. But I know
They'll
And
say
what they
detection.
initially thought was the computer system was being wonderfully accurate and capturing this fraud they weren't capturing before, when in fact, really what it was false positives.
Head of security Tony Marsh at the time said that he was actually took the credit for that additional detection.
Yeah,
and took the credit for it. Yeah, well done, mate, you idiot.
So that's a misunderstanding of the data they're getting back. They're not realizing it's a false positive.
You're not going to suggest, Ian, that you can use data to tell whatever story you want. I mean, you couldn't do a thing like that. But you can't do that.
Well, the best thing is, you see those figures there. The day before my updated version of this talk, the reason why I was taking till 12 o'clock to rewrite the talk is they actually said these numbers are no longer accurate. Despite the post office giving these under a freedom of information request, they said, no, we've got another set of numbers. So they're actually not too far off, these numbers, but it's about 938 in total. And be way about it. So the Clark advice, though, what's really important about the Clark advice is that in the 2019 group litigation order, you would have thought that knowing the contents of that document now as you do, and the fact that basically it was written by external counsel, it was given to the board of directors for the post office. So Paul Vanells would have saw that. You would have thought it's quite an important document and relevant to a group litigation about the reliability of Horizon, you might think, especially when it replies, mentions their supplier. Well, it wasn't until November 2020 did that document get unearthed. It's an 8-page document, and basically it happened to be in a box of disclosure because obviously after the group litigation order, there's still the compensation and all that stuff, which is actually still ongoing, and there's still lots of disclosure being given. And Paul Marshall, who's the barrister, found it, and he said it was the single most devastating document he's seen in his legal career. And it quite clearly says that. And off the back of that, Peter Fraser wrote a letter to Max King, the head of the DPP, Department of Public Prosecutions, recommending that Anne Chambers and Gareth Jenkins looked into, because they both performed expert witness duties for post office prosecutions. But there are other people in Fujitsu who supplied witnesses, statements and stuff like that. And so at any time, anyone could have stood up and said, yeah, we know about this, they could have grown some. And people in the post office knew about this. I do think there's a certain number of people in the post office who worked in investigation departments who weren't very good at investigating and probably didn't know any better, and they just got told it's robust and they went on with it. They were stupid people. Stupidity is no defense to the law as far as concerned. Simple question is, where's the fucking money? That's a random question. It's £74,000 missing. They don't have a new car. They've got, and the worst thing as well is most of these sub-postmasters had to remortgage their houses to cover previous losses, and their credit cards were maxed up. They borrowed money from other people. So if you'd stole £74,000, why would you have £30,000 on a fucking credit card? Why would you be owing your brother-in-law £10,000? Really simple questions like that. The police would have asked, can you tell us where the money went? Because there's no money, where's the crime? The computer says it, yes. But unfortunately, because the computer says that's what the case is, unless you can prove otherwise, which you can't, the computer is deemed to be working at the time of its operation.
It's worth adding beyond this, just because I've been reading a few legal articles on this, just from people putting their own opinions out there of believing that actually the law as it is, with it having been repealed, those sections in that section in PACE that was ensuring that the computer was accurate, that there's a suspicion that really these aren't the only miscarriages of justice. These have just come about because it happened to so many people. They've done the class action and this has come out in the wash. There could be, because essentially it's just a question of, is computer evidence accurate? And there've been many fraud trials and theft trials and so on that have gone on over time where they've relied on computer evidence.
But that's fraud trials. Fraud trials are not normally backed up by a single thing. Effectively, these postmasters were committing fraud if they were saying, because ultimately, what happened with Horizon, every week they had to do a balance, and at the end of the balancing, they had to accept what Horizon says. So if it says you're £1,000 down, you're £1,000 down. If it's £1,000 up, you get the £1,000. Awesome. But if you didn't accept what it said, you couldn't log on the following morning. You couldn't trade. So by pressing accept, you're effectively committing the act of false accounting, which technically is under the Theft Act, which is also technically fraud, because you're making a statement which is not necessarily accurate. So there was very few fraud cases carried out under Horizon. Mostly were false accounting. What they used to do is they used to charge them with theft in the last minute, say, listen, if you plead guilty to false accounting, we'll drop the theft charge. You're less likely to go to prison, and that kind of stuff. And they used it as a bargaining chip, but then you also had to sign an NDA saying you wouldn't blame Horizon for the shortfalls, and you'd have to make good losses as well. And so with fraud cases tend to be a lot more detailed, and so it's quite possible, and I'll be very surprised if it's not true, that there are cases from other systems and being private and maybe even other accountancy and goodness whatsoever, shops, wherever. But with fraud, there would have to be intent, and they'll have to, but fraud, you have to prove there was an intent to defraud, not just intent to steal.
Yeah, I guess it's just the general principle I was getting at is there could have been other cases where computer evidence has been relied on, and essentially there hasn't been an ability to challenge it. It'll have been accepted to be
car parking, automated AMPR car park.
Absolutely, yes. You, Les, the other day, I know someone got a ticket because it had a number plate. It had the first 3 digits of his number plate and the next 2. But his number plate had 7 numbers in the thing. But when the photograph was taken, he was passing a bus, so it's got ABC12. He got a ticket for that, even though his number plate was at 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, this Andrew really came to the point to bring it around to our world, which is the whole thing. And of course, people have lost money, but people have lost their lives, and this is partly why I say I don't understand life. So as I'm getting older, I really understand things less and less and less. I don't understand how anybody can get away with any of this. But let's bring it round to Andrew's comment.
Well, they're not now. That's the thing. That's the important thing.
Sure, yes. Well, thanks to your work and others. And
there was one not bright hope though. Peter Fraser, who was the judge in the 2019 group litigation order, he was no one's fool. He was a very, very astute person. He was they tried to bamboozle him with technology and stuff like that. He was having fucking none of it. And November, last year, that's not last month, last year, in November, he become the head of the Law Commission. Now, he is painfully aware, because he sat in front of it for a year, of how shit the computer laws are in this country. There's 2 problems here. Obviously, we've got government procurement's definitely an issue, but the computer laws, as he found, basically saying that Horizon was robust is equivalent to saying the world is flat. And that was a quote from him. So I'll be very, very interested in the next couple of years to see if a similar law to the Section 69 from PACE 1984 is reenacted for that reason, given the reliance that we have on computer systems in every aspect of our life today, not just in hobbying, but in professional, but even just going on holiday, booking a train service, paying for your meal in a restaurant. Everything we do now is online. And we definitely need a law that governs the reliability of computer evidence. And so whilst it won't happen tomorrow or next week, because it'll have to be drafted, have to go through the 2 houses of court, the Parliament, then obviously it takes a year to come out. With the next 3 or 4 years, it's definitely possible, especially with the inquiry going on to Horizon. It could be one of the recommendations gets given is that basically reliance on computer evidence needs to be backed up with more than a claim that our computer system is all good in it. It's in my basement. It's fine. That's no longer should be suitable. It should be, how can you prove your computer at that time wasn't running? And most computer systems these days, especially enterprise computer systems, they're going to be running clustered environments. So there's almost going to be 2 or 3 or 4 instances of a database running. Corruption of one of them can be very easily checked, because not just that, most of them run on VMs now, and you can take a VM snapshot, and most people snap the shot each day. So they've now got a historical record as of that day there. We know the state of the database was this. It's no longer it's backed up monthly or weekly. It's now almost, financial institutions are backing their stuff up every 5 minutes on the bigger boys. But even most databases, you kind of expect up on a daily basis, if not twice a day. You now have historic snapshots of you can require someone to say, look, your database was wrong that day. Here's a copy of it. Go and check it. And, one of the other issues we had with Horizon is the cost of expert witnesses, especially the early 2000s and 2010, 2015, not cheap, especially if you go into a very bespoke system like Horizon. It's effectively a big till system. With other databases tend to be quite straightforward, and they have a very, very clear. Most databases work on the ACID morphology of accuracy and all the other bits. So going forward, confirming computers are working, especially of an important system, should be more straightforward to come to an understanding of whether or not it was or not working at the time, purely because basically there'll be historical evidence captured at the time thanks to VMs and stuff like that. Now, Raspberry Pi, I saw the comment of Raspberry Pi. You're not going to be backing your Raspberry Pi up every day. Oh, still the fact you're using a Raspberry Pi tells me you don't have a big storage unit.
To be honest, with that one, it was a sarcastic comment.
Yeah, I know. But if it wasn't for Raspberry Pi, we wouldn't have ADBS, would we, without bloody Raspberry Pi? So,
hooray! Someone got the word blockchain in. Well done, Snapchat.
The point of the show
machine
about
learning.
Pi is there's a drone user database for the UK, and it's somewhere around about 200,000 records. It's not a massive amount, and it ended up being, I think, about 4 million to develop, and I think it's a couple of million a year to apparently run. And everyone's going, but why is it costing so much? You can put it on.
Sorry, who's running that?
It's. I think it's a consultant. I remember the name off the top of my head, but it's just out of my head. But it's a consultancy. I think they're based. I'm pretty sure they're based in Leeds, and it's one of their spin-offs. But there was quite a few that tendered for it, and it wasn't the cheapest one that got picked either. It was up the top end. What
are your concerns of it then?
Well,
Aside from the data it holds.
At this point, there isn't too much concern with that other than the cost. But that cost was a minimum viable product. Literally, that's it. Minimum viable product.
I hate that term.
That was his
really
description.
I used it in anger last week for the first time ever, and I stopped myself doing it.
So I'm a network architect at the moment, and I'm fighting with a lot of people who work they're in a siloed way. I work with a lot of very clever people, but they're not necessarily technically clever, but they're very clever in what they do. They're doctors and scientists and stuff like that. I work for Kinetic, so we do a lot of weapons training, and we do actually do a lot of drone and anti-drone trials as well. And we get people who actually got anti-drone trials going on for the next 5 years, and I'm supporting one of them actually. And we got some pretty clever people who analyze the data, and we collect terabytes of video a day, and we also collect logs, telemetry logs, so we can compare it against that. And I can assure you there are several copies of it. So if anything does go bad, and we also have a daily copy as well. So we are backing up so much data, it's ridiculous. But the problem I've got is I'm working with scientists, and these people are so clever about working out maths and stuff like that. They're far cleverer than I am. But when it comes to using the computer, they are somewhat lost. It's a bit of an inconvenience for them, computers. They used to notepads and papers and stuff like that. And the three phrases I hate hearing from them are, this is the way we've always done it. That's never happened before. And minimum viable product. Kinetic are a multi-billion-pound defense company. We don't have to rely on a £35 layer 2 switch. We are buying a £4,000 multifunctional, multi-layer switch because I need to separate the traffic from that to that to that. And it's just, some people struggle, but we've always done it. No, yeah. So that's my frustration. But
well, you're going to be at the heart of collecting the remote ID data that for your trials. It's going to be very handy for you.
The trials we tend to be military. To be fair, I'm sure there are some of the anti-drone trials are probably to help Home Office as well. I don't know. I don't get involved in the actual trials. I'm just
Can I be cheeky and run a word past you? And we haven't spoken about this before. If I say sapient to you, does that mean anything to you?
Never heard of it.
Okay, good. All right, well, we'll move on from that.
And if I had heard of those things, but after you, have you heard of this? I'd normally say no anyway. So, but no, I haven't heard of that. I don't get involved in the actual trialing. I'm just there to support the environment. So I build an environment for them to support it. and we've got VPN, so back up the data overnight. So we've got the production data can be tested during the day somewhere else, but we don't want to disturb the data we collect. We want to copy it because we want a copy of what we've got. So we need to compare it against something in the future. I mean,
just so you know, Brian, where we're coming from and what the concerns in the future, because the post office trial has sort of brought to the forefront something that collectively we didn't realise with UK law, the fact that really a computer evidence is being considered as robust as, say, DNA. It's just taken as granted this is correct, when we know that isn't the case, and there's no such thing as bug-free software and so on, and that really there ought to be more questions about how reliable data is. But this poses a lot of questions with drones, because you've got the sensors on the drones themselves, like GPS and so on, and these are just a couple of dollar components essentially, and you layer them up because there's, and you check one component against another. So you might have 3 IMUs so that you can check one against another and so on to get the correct picture. However, there's just the fact that there isn't this level of accuracy where you're down to the millimeter. There's environmental factors and so on. So
I think it's actually worse than you say, actually, because one thing you're relying on is that you're not relying on ultra high frequency connectivities like professional drones, the big drones do, where basically they can work reasonably autonomously, but they're quite accurate. Because the problem with IoT devices is that if you see something that's like, it's 20 quid, you're going to buy it, aren't you? But you know that basically you buy something for 20 quid and it's Bluetooth enabled. I guarantee you it has not been through pen testing. It has not been through any kind of robust testing whatsoever. We're using default keys. It's probably got hard-coded passwords in it. Because basically if they had to go and test something properly, the cost would not be $20. It'll be $350. And they'll have to sell X number of them to make the money back. So the problem with consumer grade drones, and I've got a Mini Pro 2, so luckily I fall under the 250 grams things, and I couldn't be asked to go over that. I did do the test, and I've got my registration number, but I couldn't be asked with the. I was going to buy the free, but I just couldn't be asked with that shit. They work on Wi-Fi effectively. And I'm a network engineer, and I spoof Wi-Fi a lot, and I often insecure Wi-Fi as much as I secure it. In fact, I try not to use Wi-Fi as much as I possibly can. And even with cellular technology, I wouldn't say it's trivial. You need to buy the right equipment. It's illegal to do, but you can also interfere with cellular data. You could spoof stuff. I got friends of mine, they regularly do tests with marine traffic in the Thames and on the thing. And spoofing AIS is ridiculously straightforward. And if you can convince a ship it's 10 feet away from where it should be, you've just now put it up. You've now just blocked a harbour. If you've got it to go to shallow water and there's no high water now for 2 days, no one's getting out of that. No one's getting out of that harbour now for 2 days, and all because of navigational error, which someone's getting blamed with. Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't know what that was.
But yeah, so it's very easy to do that, and the AIS wasn't lying to you, because basically I trust the AIS. It's instrumentation only. It was a bit foggy. I trusted the AIS. I've now run aground. Clearly, I fucked up. The intern's getting blamed, isn't it? The youngest person on the thing, whoever was doing that thing. I've not heard many drone spoofing stories, to be fair. I'm sure they go on, but
because Reed's not here yet. But the worry is the Home Office is trying to push remote ID. This is why you asked about Sapient as well, as this is something that's come out in the tenders. There's basically an MOD system called Sapient, and the end game of it is you put all your sensors in, it dumps all the information from sensors into a database, just a SQL database. And then it has an AI component that sits on top and tries to deal with that. Because if you were trying to look at, you'll never get 200,000 drones flying all at once. But let's just say, for argument's sake, everyone in the UK set the drone off at once. There's no way anyone can monitor that. So the idea is to think, oh, well, we can monitor this with a computer. I mean, that in itself creates problems, as no one's quite got to the bottom of how do you test AI and know that it's made the correct decisions to begin with. So that's going to be a future minefield, as it is, of is that decision correct? But even if you could get, I mean, we've got multiple problems. Is because this is sat on a government server and it's considered national security, they're never going to give you the information. Freedom of information is never going to get you the information.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So it depends on classification of the data and depends on where it is and that kind of stuff. For example, if you're flying over Boscombe Down, yeah, with a great respect, you deserve everything you're going to get. But also, yes, there are national security issues there because Boscombe Down hosts multiple things and multiple companies. Even though, so Kinetic look after all the ranges under the LTPA project. But for example, BAE, Boeing, and other companies also have equipment at Boscombe Down. I know that because I've designed systems to connect them to other systems and give them internet access. So they'll get a building there, and then we'll provide them with network access. So they can go back to their VPNs and stuff. So if you're fucking about with defense companies, well, you get everything you get. If you're flying in your local park, I don't think a freedom of information request would hold up much.
I guess the problem is it's not where you're flying; it's where it's stored. It's the fact that it's being stored on a system where they're saying, well, this is, they argue all the time with counter UAS. They say this is national security. I've been battling for 3 years, probably 4 years, for acknowledgement that even Aeroscope was at Gatwick in 2018.
Sapient or Sapient?
Sapient.
Yeah. So I just look at the website now. That says it's DSTL, which is that would be Kinetic.
It's your fault.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but look at DSTL. So Kinetic used to be DSTL. So in 2021, it's been updated July. So just looking up here, I don't recognise locations of any of the pictures they show. Saying that does look like Portsmouth in the picture they got there.
I think it is.
Porton Down.
Is it Porton Down? Yeah, it's that way, isn't it? It's all that south, isn't it? That's all you need to know about that.
Well, just south of Boscombe, Porton. You can see it from there anyway.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Well,
but so that's not where the trials I know which are going on are happening. So that's fine. It's not the ones I'm dealing with. So that's good.
Well, I think that the parallels with your story. So there's a couple of things, and one of the things that's been making me think a lot about. I thought a lot about after I saw your excellent delivering the fail video on YouTube. Was Ian has been doggedly pursuing the Gatwick drone thing.
I've seen that.
None of us believed there was a Gatwick drone, and his freedom of information request and everything looks. As I was watching your video, I was thinking, oh, this looks all familiar. And now looking at your very excellent website there, I think we need one like that, Ian, for all the FOIAs and everything that we have for Gatwick. It's just these. Why am I ranting? I'm ranting because people are beginning to say, "Oh, look, let's just move on from Gatwick. Let's just move on. Let's just forget it and move on." And I really don't think we can. I really think we have to shine, because Gatwick has caused a lot of trouble for the drone industry in enforcing counter UAS stuff. Or it's selling a lot of counter UAS gear, and a lot of it doesn't work, and we know that for a fact. Mark is involved in some trials of these things and aggressing them. And we know a lot of it out there doesn't work, but it's selling because of Gatwick.
It's quite funny. There's a trade show in London every year. It used to be called Counterterrorism. It's now called CTX.
Yeah.
And every year you go there, and every year there's a theme. Like the first year I started going there, it was just fences. Everyone was selling fences and gates. The next year they were selling drones. And then the following year, they're selling anti-drone technology, most of which even I knew. Basically, I stand more chance with a 2.2 air rifle than that thing does. Okay, and it's just interesting to see how it goes. Yeah, I completely understand that. They can't jam signals because they need a Home Office warrant to do that. It's not going to happen. If they do that, they're going to knock a load of other stuff off, and it could potentially affect other stuff as well.
I think they can do it now because it was revealed in the Freedom of Information that Gatwick even got permission there to use it.
Yeah, but they'd have to get permission on a case-by-case basis, I would have thought, unless it's specific to the location.
I know the installation there has got an effector, so they must, for them to have an effector there, they must have permission or know they can get it quickly enough.
Well, that's two different things. Having a standing order, but asking for permission. We have armed police officers in this country, but before they can load up their weapons, they have to ask for permission. So just because we've got the capability doesn't necessarily mean we're allowed to use it. So we're not like the American, it's not like the films. It's never like in the latest America. There is so much paperwork bullshit that even putting a taser out and pointing a taser at someone, they call it red lighting someone, even if you don't fire the taser, the paperwork involved is about 6 different forms just for pointing a taser at you with the red light aiming on, telling you to calm yourself down, sir. You're making a nuisance of yourself. And Josh, at that point then, if I got 6 pieces of paper I've got to fill in for that, I'm shooting you. Because Josh, it's the same amount of paperwork and I get a bit of fun and you get to feel the pain I'm about to have. Yeah, the capability may exist, but blocking any kind of radio frequency signals now. That's not something to be taken lightly, and anyone who agrees to that, there's going to be a bit of paperwork and explaining involved in that.
Anyone that's played with radios as a radio ham or whatever will be far more afraid of Ofcom than they are of the civil aviation.
I was going to say it is getting more trivial now doing this though, because Dublin Airport, that was their answer was.
Yeah, but Dublin Airport's not in the UK.
No. I'm just thinking of an international, because they were using. They were saying that.
Also,
their excuse, even though I'm not convinced.
Northern Ireland as a whole, and also the Republic of Ireland, have very, very different anti-terrorist laws. So if you could throw anything under the anti-terrorist legislation, trust me, you can get away with a lot. Okay, but you got to get pinned underneath that. And so the other thing as well, I mean, you got Data Protection Act and also GDPR. So the database would have to be resilient and robust. I mean, I don't know what the database is. I don't know what area storage. I do think that if they are going to do it, they would have to have open scrutiny if they're going to start recording that kind of data.
So the fear is with RID, basically, Brian, is we'll end up with RID. It's going to get transmitted from your drone in real time, which gives away your location, the drone's location, how far the drone's traveling, what height it is. All we need is the GPS error to be wrong, especially on the vertical, because on the vertical, GPS is atrocious. Absolutely. All it needs to be is out. They'll have an AI system that just flags it and goes, this operator flew 20 meters too high.
Okay.
From the takeoff point, you get the fine. And there's nothing that we can do to fight back against things like that.
There is.
Because we've just said the post office said the system was robust. Therefore, Parliament says, the law says that the data has to be believed, right? So it's a robust system. It's proven to be robust, even though the GPS on the drone could have been wrong, or the RID unit. Therefore, automatically, we get the fine. For example, this is only an example. It might not happen like this. You fly too far, you fly too high, you get the fine. The problem is there's no comeback because the system is flawless. It works, which is what it happened in the post office. Only when it was uncovered the bugs did it all come out how bad these post office people were treated.
Like I said, as long as Fujitsu don't do the RID database, I think you stand a good chance of being on safe ground. But one other application. So I did some work in the early 2000s in prisons. Drone technology was just coming about. That's when you had your parrots and stuff like that. And drones were, and some of the ridiculous stuff people were looking into, and some of it actually worked badly, but it worked. For example, because the sensors underneath those drones, which just sense in the ground, only IR effectively. So if you used to get the mole scarers, and if you can get it right underneath it, the drone used to lose its telemetry and used to go straight up. And the practicalities of building a system that goes around a prison and has a decent coverage going up. So if a drone flies over at 100 meters, fine, it's going to get caught. But you're just going to send up to 400 meters, aren't you? Go over the geofence and in you go. That's where the problems exist, or in locations like that. Obviously, airports, there's a health and safety danger. I can see how the Gatwick thing, because obviously I do see your posts quite a lot in, and I understand how you're quite infused by it. And I can understand.
Sorry, carry on.
No, please do.
No, I was going to say, it was just a hello, by the way. Sorry, I was a bit late coming in. I do think as well that there is a difference with the post office versus what we're going to have in RID. You had what was in essence an arm of the government, whether it was or wasn't. It was public, and it's been deemed as such for donkey's years. And you mentioned some things earlier which made me chuckle because I was listening, and you know, they decided before they even put this system out that any errors were down to the person by the very fact of you had to accept errors.
The contract was deemed to be unsafe as well. The contractor,
the whole thing was just, you can even see it by the fact of, if you have a system that if you believe there's a problem, your only option is to accept it. They've already made the decision you're in the wrong. I think with RID and what we've got is, and whilst it's not good, and it's going to be interesting to see how some of the organizations, the police and the agencies handle it, there isn't one big player behind this outside of, say, DJI. You're going to be dealing with multiple pieces of hardware. They're going to be looking to use data that they don't actually own in the first place, and that's the big difference.
The problem is, the data is going to be picked up by the government RID sensors, which ownership will be DFT or Home Office, probably Home Office, because the other stuff at the moment is. So this is a Home Office system collecting the data. That data will be considered robust. It'll be going straight injected onto the database, and that location is considered fact. That height is considered fact. It's all considered fact. And even worse, it could even be argued even worse, because they say, well, it's collected off your drone.
Yeah.
You know, why would we be messing with it?
But the difference is we will also have our own data here, and that's the big difference here.
Then they have to prove that your drone was working correctly at the time of its operation.
Yeah.
Well, but isn't it a computer? They don't have to prove that computers work.
But also, the responsibility of the owner is to make sure their drone is working properly. So if your drone wasn't working properly, you're already violating the regs.
It's the person. No, so if you get accused that you flew at 405 meters, there you go, you heinous crime. But let's say you did that, and you did it for a sustained period of time, because obviously wind could have affected it and all kind of stuff, atmospheric and geographical. And they turn around and say, right, we believe you were thrown for that. Okay, well, where's your evidence? Oh, here's the evidence. It's come from your drone. Just turns out my drone was fucked. And you just basically tell
if it was easy, everyone that's flown into a prison would say, I haven't flown into it. It was a flyaway.
Has anyone tried that as a matter of interest?
But does it work if you get a speed camera ticket for driving too fast? Can you say, "Oh, my car speedo was faulty"?
Well, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the other reasons why that PACE Section 69 was also removed, because it also meant that challenges to breathalyzers and speed cameras could no longer be. It reduced the number of appeals, because they could turn and say, "Show me the calibration certificate, show me this, that, and the other," and the cost of having to show that kind of stuff basically meant the offence was really expensive to put in place. So, I mean, I think if they are going to do that kind of law, I think they'll have to bring in some form of calibration tooling, or maybe have onboard telemetrics. So you have to have 2 altimeters, two of everything, got everything, and you have to have a memory card storing it. And you have to keep that for so long.
Brian, is that one up, because the problem is, if it was bigger drones, and we were still in the world where people were flying 1 to 4 kilograms, that'd be all fine. But they want to do this on sub 250, and because it's so basically
sub 250. I thought it's 900 grams and up.
No, it's coming to everything.
In which case, you now got my attention, the bastard.
Oh, right, okay.
When you sent the email earlier, you said you were. That's all right. I'm not involved. I thought we will drop it in eventually.
You got that quite, didn't you? Could have started with that.
Yeah.
You'll be okay with DJI at least, because they'll likely put it in for the firmware with the existing components. But the problem comes about for everyone else that's not on DJI. They'll have to buy a module, so they have to add to an existing drone. So some of these drones, they weigh as much as a module weighs, so they couldn't even carry it. So the point is, whoever does the RID things will have to get down to such a minimum amount of components. You won't have any redundancy. And in fact, we already have with sub 250 to get them to that way. We take off the safety features. Instead of having 3 IMUs, you might have 2, or you might just have 1. Already to meet the weight, so many components are stripped off. So that's why there's this concern with RID. If it's like the US ones, it'll be such a basic module that there will be genuine potential for errors there. As well as
but wait, there's more. It's not just about the broadcast remote ID. It's the network remote ID.
Yeah, it'll need a cellular modem.
Oh yes, so that's even more weight here. Yeah. Because in the US it is a local transmission only. In the UK they want it to be network remote ID, so it will go over like cellular, and then it will fall back to a local if it can't. So it has to have both sets of components.
Only in areas where that's allowed to happen, though.
My other concern with this is there's two places it can go wrong. It can go wrong on the hardware on your drone collecting the data, but it can also be the sensors collecting the data, because they're not just using the remote ID sensors, they bought RF as well. So it depends what sensors grabbing your data as well and how accurate that is, because you can, on any of these sensors, you can get false positives, and that's why with counter drone systems, it's always multiple things. So, you'll use RF. Ultimately, you'll have a head unit on it. Pan tilt zoom, I'll zoom in, I'll get the video, and that's the perfect proof. But here, you couldn't afford to put cameras around the entire of the UK on a national system, looking at everything to get that bit.
Just bring a bit of common sense back down. I mean, I appreciate that. Obviously, we're looking at worst case scenarios. Sorry, it's Tuesday. I'm sober. I deal with it. Cellular data, for example, to put you at the scene of a crime, the police can obviously get cellular data from your mobile phone. Most people have a mobile phone of some description. Cars now have cell phones, cellular things in my dance. But they don't need data. No, you don't need. As long as you basically got a connection to a network, you have to be using data. They can trace you from your IME number. But it's all very well turned around. So your phone was at a certain location at a certain time. It doesn't necessarily mean you were there. So as soon as someone can spoof a signal and do so reasonably accurately, that technology, any technology they want to basically use, now needs to be tested.
But spoofing's a crime now, but will be.
Yeah, but the great aspect, if you're likely to go ahead and try and do kind of stuff like that, that's going to be not really bothering you. I organise a conference in London called B-Size London, and we had 1,400 people there this year. So it's like a hacking convention basically, and I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time fucking about with stuff because they can. This year we had put a warning out, we had to put a request out that if you're going to come down with your flippers, please don't just go after any Bluetooth network you find, because, well, a lot of medical devices are now Bluetooth enabled, and you could be taking off someone's, well, it's even stuff like a Flipper Zero will do it, and you could basically go and hit someone's dialysis or even a pacemaker, and they're using cellular and also Bluetooth nowadays. And so it's like, please don't just because you see a network and it's there, please just don't attack it. And like, luckily we had no deaths, so we're all good. But these people here, they spend their time trying to find ways to do stuff because they can, not because they need to do it. If you tell them you can't do something, they do it.
If you Google the flipper things, Gary, the tiny devices, I've noticed a lot of people just generally on there.
I know, but I'm old and duffer. This one's easier for me because it actually says on the screen. The Flipper's got a really small screen, whereas this one says AIS, ADSB, cellular. So it's got a better front end for someone like me.
You're not spy with that though, are you? Look at that bit of kit. You'll be
really spy. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and I've never heard of a Flipper. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Flippers are quite quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say, if you're going to do this nefarious acts, but they are. There's 3 new laws coming in to do with RID, isn't there? And I can't remember what they are, but one of them is the spoofing part.
Yeah, that already exists, doesn't it? The Telecommunications Act does that.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it, Scott? In the behalf of best hope, it's too late.
No, too late.
It's rubber stamps, Scott. It's rubber stamps.
The interesting thing, the Telecom Act, why are they doubling up on all the regulations? They're doubling up on privacy regulations. They're doubling up on the Telecom Act. Surely there should only be one regulation to deal with one offence.
Well, this is where it comes back to, because obviously the Telecommunications Act 1984, a lot of that is still accurate. Section 43 of that basically is interfering with someone whilst carrying out their duties as a telecommunication. So if you stop someone from BT doing something, you're actually under correct in Section 43 of the Telecommunications Act. Don't ask me why I remember that one, but they the Telecommunications Act also used to do stuff, for example, distress calls and stuff like that. If you give a distress call, you send a message that's likely to misinform, distress, or cause annoyance to, you're committing an offence. Which is and that's the law they get you if you're doing harassment on Twitter. That's what they nick you under, that communication law. The problem is, who knows where drones are going to be in 18 months' time.
Well, look, I'll let everyone. But talking to Scott and the BMFA thing, the bottom line is this is from a future flight pack that I found on an SD card. So quite amazing the number of files that I find on SD cards just lying around all over the place. And this one, it tells us, look at the numbers here. Add up all the other CAA bits and all those other CAA bits, the ATOL and the AOC holders, training organizations, all those other numbers add up to 123,317 and 513,860 RPAS users. We're the biggest group by far now that pays the Civil Aviation Authority some coin, and we outpay all aspects of general aviation. So that's where our strength is in numbers, and I don't get it why there's I think only 2,000 people have submitted it. Oh, there's Simon. Hello, Simon. Useful things, SD cards. Yeah, absolutely. Only 2,000 odd people have submitted their response to the CAA. So that's not a very big number out of 513,000 users, is it? And apathy is the winner. Yeah, apathy is the winner in all of this. Sorry, I'll rant over.
Here's the important bit as well, because they've said RID is coming. It's technically it's in our law already. It's already written into our law. Technically, it's kind of written to come, and they're aiming at 2028, but it's kind of already written in. It was in the EU regs that are now implemented. We're just delaying it a bit longer. YASA now have it. Let's not forget, America kind of has it. It's sort of been kicked about a bit in America because they've maybe realised they've screwed up. YASA now has it for anything over 250, I believe. And they've completely, it's easy to spoof. If you wanted to shut down things, you could do it quite happily, freak people out. It's all possible. We've now got a delay on it because RCA, I think, have gone, it can be spoofed, it can be incorrect data pumped out. But, they're talking about now, in part of the consultation, they're also saying we could get freer sites. So the BMFA is aware, and they have said, we're hoping that model flying sites you won't need RID. But actually, if you read the CAA's paperwork, it quite clearly states that actually it doesn't matter if you're BMFA or not, you will have to have RID in certain areas. They're just going to go for it.
What they're concerned about. The concern they've got from the Home Office is they don't want false positives, because they want to have this singing, dancing system that's covering the UK that says there's drones up here, there, and everywhere, or wherever they are. And their argument is, if you're transmitting remote ID, we or our fancy AI, whichever we're using, whether we're doing it manually or whether we're using that, we don't have to worry about any of those transmitting RID, because you must all be doing good things because you're transmitting RID. And they say, well, now all we have to do is focusing on all those flying devices that aren't transmitting RID. So we've got a lower set to look at. So there is a stance of, if you're not transmitting, you're doing something bad, we'll send some police to go out after you. Whether that'll be doable in practice, I don't think so, because we know a lot of the stuff here, that there were faults already known. This will be interesting for you, Brian. With the counter drone sensors, some of them, if you take the RF ones, they will pick up a Tesla because they'll see them moving Wi-Fi, so it thinks that's potentially a drone. So they're saying we don't want anything flying without remote ID, because anything we pick up is going to be a bad actor. But I think they will actually find in practice they will still have false positives. That this idea that you can have a system without false positives is probably naive, but they won't find out until they built it and spent everybody's money. So
it's just as well stealing drones is illegal. Otherwise, bad actors would steal drones with other people's remote ID and use those and fall under the cover.
yeah, I mean,
Hang on a minute. Did you say it was a drone stolen? I just need to add that to the 18,001 stats. There we are. I've just added that. To
well,
the
that's the point is there are a lot of stolen, missing drones you could use to begin with. If it's like the other vid implementations, there's a good chance you could clone someone else's ID. So you could pretend to be somebody else. Even worse, if you got a police drone's ID and transmitted that out, you've got free access anywhere, haven't you, essentially? So there's all the concern about, from the Home Office's viewpoint, it's just, we will build this perfect system. It will be fine as long as we don't have false positives. We won't have false positives if you're all equipped. So they're going to want model aircraft also equipped. They could, with a site, you could just ring fence an area and say, well, we'll ignore anything in that. So you could do that. But then you're not going to be able to test the model at home when you're building it or whatever. So I don't know whether that's a concern.
With great respect, you can't test your fishing rig at home either. So you've got to go somewhere for that. So you can't test your speedway motorcycle. There's so many things you can't do at home.
I guess that the point is you might just turn something on. I mean, for example, if you're firmware updating with a drone, you turn it on there. And in fact, even if you had an RC model, you might have something where you're firmware updating the RC.
Then you put it into a non-notification mode, and basically that only allows that functionality. There are many things that can be done. And obviously,
the point I'm getting at the moment is the way they want rid is it's not if you're flying, it's if you turn it on. So it has to be working anywhere you might turn it on. For them to know. Otherwise, the assumption at the moment is you're a bad actor. So otherwise,
one thing you got to remember is this: drone technology has gone forward quite considerably in the last number of years, and it's going to go better and smaller and faster, and and there's no getting away from that. And you can see how devastating. Instead of throwing a £600,000 ordnance at something and blowing it up, you can get £1,000 worth of cheap drone which you made yourself in a bunker in Ukraine and go take out a load of Russians. Don't take out Germans, they're our friends. Take the Russians. And I don't really have a problem with that. But you can see how a threat they are now.
But that's the myth. Because you're only a threat if you've got the bomb. And you can't just walk around and get a bomb in the UK. And you from actually use it. There are terrorist cases that have already been tried. You need
to tell bombers that, because they do that.
Well, here's the thing, right? What people are talking about when they say sticking stuff onto a drone, that is a lot more illegal than the drone will ever be, and it's easy enough to put that into a backpack. We make all backpacks rid.
No. I think basically you take it to a further consensus. Then I think it needs to be. I'm just talking about, for example, I'm sure it's already. Obviously, we've got no-fly areas around airports and other establishments like nuclear establishments, stuff like that. They already go. But if you take the GPS off a drone, then obviously that zone now is no longer a problem because you're no longer geofenced. So, but then you're not ever going to get away from that. And I fully appreciate that. But unfortunately, the legislators, they're looking at it from that point of view because that's what they get told. And that's why they get budget is by saying, look, blow something up or not blow something. That's where you get budget.
The point we're making is legislators are they're essentially being misled. There's this over dramatization with drones, and this thing about drones and dropping bombs is nothing new.
Okay, so
the New York Times, I think, first said this could happen. I think it was over 10 years ago now, and the FBI or someone did a
20
test.
years ago.
They literally put Fleet 4 on a Phantom and all this and said, so none of this was ever new to a terrorist. And for over 10 years, terrorists have known they could do this, and they've chosen not to because it's easier to get a knife and to get a car, and you could do the carnage you want and get the result you want, and it's a lot less faff. And the only two terrorists that I've seen in court with drones, apart from both being caught, obviously, one of them started and decided never to bother because he realised to actually make a homemade bomb, it would need a car to deliver it to do the damage they wanted it to do. So he then moved on to doing a car. And then you've got the guy recently did the 3D printed thing that was never ever going to fly. Even the judge had said it wasn't, really it wasn't a viable device.
There's a guy a remote control car as well who tried it as well.
Yeah, he was prosecuted for his intent, which was correct. But it's just that understanding of what people think would happen with the drone in the UK.
The problem with legislators, the legislators aren't enthusiasts like your good selves. So, for example, the backdoor for private messaging, that law obviously failed recently. Simple fact, basically, you can't put backdoors. You put a backdoor in, the backdoors are available for bad people as well. So that was never going to fly. But the legislation, the way it was going about, the way that the ministers were talking about.
I don't know if you're aware that Bruce is a bit of a celebrity because he was the bloke that made the DIY cruise missile.
Okay. He drinks tea, so he's fine.
Yeah, well, and there he is. He's sat underneath you. So yeah. So yeah, there's previous in this room in this regard.
But that's the problem with any legislation. Like I say, it's never going to be fit for purpose because technology moves on so quickly and a lot faster than legislation does. And we're still talking about a 1984 and a 1999 law, and which we know the 1984 one, ironically, the really old one, would actually provide some cover because you'd have to prove some form of operation. It was being conducted. The machine was working. I mean, driverless cars. Where's the law going to go with that one? You're going to have. Can you prove to me that car was driving fine while it mowed down that bus stop of Duns? Because it's going to happen. And so that's the same law there, and we're trying to apply the same law to all these different things. That probably explains why there's so many little niche laws. It's because we have experts in those particular fields and not in general counsel. But I don't know. It's 2016 they're looking at bringing it in, aren't they?
You've been very generous with your time and joining us. I mean, and you've I can't believe how thorough and honest you've been, and the parallels with your work and Ian's work on Gatwick is just so stark to me that we need your help. Or do we, Ian? Maybe we don't. I think we do.
It's good to. It's just good to see. I mean, for me, it was just enlightening to see the faith we put in computer data alone without additional, just without additional support. It worries me. We can't say for sure we've seen any misuse today, but I do worry for the future. When you're saying someone's at a particular height or in a specific location, especially when it can be spoofed, I fear that someone's drone will get cloned. They'll get prosecuted for crime they didn't do, and it'll just be a case of computer says you were there. That's it, done and dusted. Because we know, what we saw with Gatwick, they just wanted anyone. We saw that couple. By the time the couple were arrested, they had more than enough evidence already that there likely wasn't a drone, but they still went in.
They still got 300 grand, didn't they, or something, didn't they? They did quite well out of it.
No, it was all they got 200k, but 140 odd of that was the legal fee. So actually, they came out with 22.5 each or something around that. So
not for a weekend's work, though, is it? Come on. Was it a weekend? Was a weekend's work? It's not bad, is it? I mean, what did I get paid?
Hey, how they were treated, demonized in the press and everything else.
That's the problem with the press.
Grand. I'll tell you what, it was disgusting.
I mean,
double that or more.
Well, that's what happened. So some of these sub postmasters, some of these people have been the pillars of society, and now they're being offered £1,000, £5,000. But
disgusting.
Absolutely disgusting, yeah. And it's exactly the same thing. I mean, there was a case a few years ago of a woman called I can't remember her Twitter handle was called. It was something like Snuffy Bunny or something like that. It was something quite cute, but it turns out she was quite a nasty person, and she was making a lot of comments about the McCanns, and suggesting that maybe they had more involvement than they didn't. Anyway, so one of the national newspapers found her, knocked on her door, and they were like, once does it, they all do it. And the press here the press. There's certain elements of the press that aren't necessarily, should we say, aren't nice people. I know that's controversy, but yeah, I'm going to say it. That's not every reporter is your friend. But she ended up going and staying in a hotel because people knocking on her door. Because obviously then they shown her on TV knocking on the door. That's not too hard to geolocate. and especially when they say this area here, and here's this woman. Well, she's gonna be fucking hard to find, and she committed suicide. Now, great respect. Her actions were great respect. If you're going to put something out on Twitter, if you're going to think basically good thing about social media is it gives everyone a voice. But what some people don't realize is that basically you've got nothing to fucking say, and just because you've got the ability to say something, just because you can, doesn't necessarily mean you should. And that's a ethos that should apply to many things in life. And I do have to bite my tongue quite often on Twitter because just thinking, I just can't be asked on one side, and it's like but when you see something that's so fundamentally wrong, someone's got the information about something so incredibly wrong, it's like, okay, fine, you just crack on. One thing I would suggest to you guys, though, going forward, if I may be spoiled, is that I'm not too sure where you guys are geographically in the world, but I guarantee where you are, somewhere near you, you'll find a B-Sides event. Now, B-Sides is a conference, which is, they're all locally organised. I organise B-Sides London, but we've got lots in the UK. There's B-Sides Bordeaux. It's basically...
That'd be a nice one.
Yeah, anyone does security. It's any field of security. It doesn't matter if you do IT security, physical security. We have pen testers, we have social engineers, we have everyone in between. CISOs, the works. And Bordeaux, the wine region, they have one. They get about 80 people a year, but I bet you the after party is fucking awesome. But they started off in Las Vegas. Some guys went to give some talks at Black Hat. They weren't chosen, but they already paid for their accommodation, so they just decided to stand in their house and give their talks over. And so B-Sides started in 2009. First B-Sides one was 2011, and it's the kind of place where you can go and talk to people in security world, and everyone's trousers goes on like one leg at a time. No one's special, and it's a very, very good place, very informal, and you can go and express some of your concerns. And because we have this year we had car hacking village. We all have the lockpicker village. We always have that. We have a car hacking village, which is quite cool. You can go and hack a car literally. I tried to get the maritime one this year. The Pentest partners have a maritime rig, and they also have a 747 as well. And I tried to get that, so I went to land, sea and air. And last year we had the Royal Signals come down with they had satellite rigs we could hack, and so I wanted to try and do that. So if there's something you guys wanted to organise and you approach your local B-Sides, especially if it's around the security of the drones, for example, one, you'll be basically encouraging people and inspiring people to go and do something they probably wouldn't have done before, and two, you're probably going to be improving the security of the drones probably quicker than the manufacturers would like to have to secure them because they'll find their weaknesses in those drones damn sight quicker than their own pen testers will. I would urge you all to go off and find your local B-Sides and go and start talking to people about drone security, because it is a thing. Anything that, especially wireless networks, anything, especially that spoofing thing, these are potentials. And if you can basically get someone to actively go off and find a way of doing this in a reliable fashion, well, then you can find the way of preventing it from happening in a reliable fashion. So therefore, any event that has to happen where that actually occurs would be a determined effort, would take effort. You want to get rid of all the trivial attacks, so that basically only the hard attacks.
There's been an event in Eastern Europe that's been moving that sort of thing on fairly rapidly in the last 2 years, and we certainly know of lots of people involved in lots of efforts for that. There's Anthony was asking, that I put a link in there for you, Anthony, and the one for me will be in Cape Town, so a bit of a drive, but it's maybe I'll take a poodle down there and have a look.
There's any form of security. Obviously, it's mainly IT, but there'll be pen testers down there. There'll be CISOs down there. There'll be sponsors down there as well. And the other thing about B-Sides as well is that it's funded purely by sponsorship. They may charge for a ticket, but it'll be a low price. And that's only because basically if you give a free ticket away, people don't tend to turn up. London, we do free tickets, but we do have paid for tickets, which go first. But you don't get any extra for the paid for ticket. You just give us money. It's great. So we get one sponsor. But yeah, we've had, who did we have this year? We had a couple of new sponsors this year. We had Watchtower. We've always got like Tenable, Tesco sponsored this year. They were just recruiting for their cybersecurity stuff. We've had Facebook. We've had, we jump set. We get lots of defense companies, and the good thing about from a sponsorship point of view for the vendors going to sponsor these events is that they know the people turning up aren't necessarily the decision makers. They're not going to be able to turn around and say, "I'd like to order that, please," and a £250,000 license for your shit product that isn't what the team needs. These are actual practitioners. And so it's a good time that these people can go off and tell them how shit their product is and how they can improve it. But also, it's a great place to recruit. So if you're looking for a job and you're in security, a B-size is a cracking place to go and find a job.
I should add, I bet Fujitsu don't sponsor you.
It's funny to say that, no. And there's a girl called Vic Hartness who spends a lot of time in Ukraine at the moment, but she started B-sides Basingstoke a couple of years ago, and she contacted me and said, could you use just tips and start it up? I said, well, okay, fine, on one condition, that if Fujitsu ever approach you for sponsorship, that you say no. She goes, look, that's fine. I would not take that fucking money anyway. Excellent. In which case, what help do you need, Vic? And but yeah, the Fujitsu don't do that kind of stuff. They wouldn't spend money like that. That'd be useful. But but no, I would recommend those. There's about 927 events around the world now, 62 different countries, and they're all independent to each other. So I can only talk on behalf of London.
And I have to ask, Rev, which Ian do you mean? Or is that a Julian thing? Because Ian, I think Rev's in Wales, I think, so he'd need the Welsh version.
That's B-side.
So Cardiff. Ian, that'd be Ian. No, they're making the spoof models. He's talking about trying to create a product. So, we'd have to think of our audience, where they're based nationally, and depending on which Ian would get it. Now, look, let's quickly. My power is going in 29 minutes. So, we were supposed to do before I changed what we were going to do today, because this is a fantastic, and Brian's been fantastic, and it's important stuff to hear about. It's been all of this, and how good computers go bad. But we ought to really think about our predictions. We're going to do. That's why we had Mystic Bruce in the thumbnail. We were going to do predictions for this year. Mine, I'll do it very quickly, as things are going to get simpler. I'll go against what Brian said earlier. Systems are going to get simpler and multitudinous, lots of them. Who's next?
Oh, I'll go next. Because I say this, I'm sure I said this last year and I got it wrong, but I'm going to say it again anyway, and I'll probably get it wrong. But I am going to predict the first manned eVTOL accident. I just think the thing is, there haven't been as many manned flights as I think are made out to be, and I think where they are, they're very brief. So, but I think we are getting a bit of momentum now, especially in China, where I think, fortunately, it's going to be inevitable. So I will say that for this year. That's my side. I don't like doing negative ones, but unfortunately.
So your one is bring on the death then. Okay, right. So yours is bring on death. Excellent. Anyone any more for any more?
Nothing will change. There you go.
The only constant is change.
No, we will be in the same position in 12 months with nothing else have happened. How many years are we down with RID now? How many years are we down? It'll all be the same.
No.
Unless things change, the more stay the same.
Yeah. So I think for the UK, we might, if we're going to see delivery trials without temporary danger areas, and this is the big one, if it's going to happen in 2024, it will be with altitude angels, superhighway, but I don't know if the regulator can move fast enough. I predict the regulators are still going to be slow to a degree. So it's like if you want to get permissions to run a light show business.
That's not a prediction. that's a truth.
They won't get any faster. Sorry, the regulator won't get any faster doing permissions like for OSCs and special stuff. We're going to see the PDRA01 operators. The numbers are plummeting. I predict it will get to about 2,000, maybe less.
Mine's expired. I've gone.
Yep.
I've let it go.
Yep. You know, and it's like in the current consultation, CA go, what could we do to make things simpler? It's easy. Roll back the rules pre-2020. Go back to 2019 rules. You know, make our life easier. We still had FRZs, but we didn't have all the twaddle that the EU adopted regulations brought in, which would be nice. But, you know, if you crash read the OARC, I mean,
It's a matter of interest. With the obviously with the Ukraine war, one of the when they went after the steel plant, one of the byproducts of steel manufacture is the xenon gas they use for making chips, and it caused a load of issues with supplying network equipment and servers. I got quoted 294 days for a wireless access point, Cisco off the shelf, nothing common, cheap, £400 wireless access point, purely because basically the chip was. The chip shortage was terrible. It's kind of got back to where it was now. But did you guys see that in the last year or so? Was there any kind of like shortages of stuff?
Very, very briefly, especially in FPV, and there's actually been an interesting statement this week in Ukraine. They estimate they're going to build 1 million FPV drones in 2024, and that in itself is going to potentially have an impact. If that, the problem we don't know is how many they did in 2023. And we definitely saw a drying up for probably 3 months, but today there's no availability issues anymore. It seems to have leveled up again.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of hype too on the part of Ukraine. I'm not sure that they will produce that many. That's a lot of drones. That's like probably 20 times as many as being sold every year at the moment.
I'd even question, Bruce, and you might, you think, I don't even know if FPV there would be 1 million flight controllers made a year. I don't even think.
No, they're not. I mean, I suspect the FPV market
could they do point and fly drones?
Was that?
Well, no, you're FPV, but could they possibly looking at point and fly drones? Just basically point it in that direction of them, off it goes.
Still need the same controller, basically.
Yeah,
but it's still the same controller.
And FPV is probably less affected by countermeasures like GPS disruption.
Yeah, a basic FPV drone is basically unstoppable from a you could stick Crossfire on it or any of the 800 links. You're not going to be looking for that as standard. You could shift the frequency off a little bit and you've got a camera and you can fly it into you want. All of these drone detection companies can shout and scream about how amazing they are. An analog video system transmitting at 5.8 gigs or even you go down to 1.3 if you really want to get out the way. They ain't stopping these. And
you see the Russians claiming they've got anti-disruption technology, and it's just a LoRa thing with a wave trap in the top of it.
What did they say? They said it was magical, didn't they? I think the word was magical or something.
It was magical. With the label scratched off.
It's an Uber 2-for-1. That's what it is.
I've got a magical system here somewhere. Where is it?
I did see that video of that last year, which was incredible, where they flew an FPV plane that did have some explosives on board, a quad, and landed it on the nose of a plane that was landed it.
Oh, that's right. It damaged the flight. The frame.
And you just seen that and just went, this changes everything. You
the cost of that drone taking the airframe out was a good investment.
You're talking.
And it's strange, isn't it? Because the way governments are going, there's not going to be FPV pilots out there. If we all go to war, they'll be clamoring for FPV pilots. I'm sorry, mate, you guys cancelled the hobby. No one knows how to fly it.
Well, of course, the US are standing up the replicator program, which they're already, I think we're at month 4 now of
Blue
this
list.
Revolutionary. Yeah, look how quickly we're going to make stuff like Ukraine does. And they're at month 4 and they haven't built a thing yet.
Because they don't have the parts.
Okay. Great. It's really good.
Yeah, Ukraine have worked on a government project.
Yeah.
Well, they'll have a committee trying to decide what motor to use. What where we're going to get the motor from?
Month 4, we're still discussing biscuits and what type of meetings. Okay,
that is exactly what I was going to say.
And coffee.
It's the biscuits are going first, and the next set of round of meetings is for the coffee, and that's as far as they've got. And all right, there's my prediction. One I will pull out. Replicator will not work this year. It will
I don't
not
want.
work.
You can imagine it now. We don't want no foreign-built motor being used in our kamikaze aircraft. We want our
that's right.
What's America?
Come over here solving our problems.
Yes.
I
I have some
I've,
predictions.
there's a bespoke American motor made for me years ago, but anyway, that company doesn't exist anymore. But anyway,
No.
sorry, Bruce, your predictions.
I
and
have
we
some
must go.
predictions.
Yeah.
I predict that people will die in manned aviation. People won't die in unmanned aviation. And I predict that in America, the FAA is going to make an example of 1 or 2 people in respect to remote ID to try and have a chilling effect on everybody else because they realize compliance will be lower than they had anticipated. And talking to Ian about the eVTOL death, interestingly enough, Lexi Jansen, do you know who she is?
Yes.
Yeah, Lexi's coming to New Zealand. She's going to be dropping in a couple of weeks' time. So I might try and have a bit of a word with her because she flew the Jetson. She was with the Jetson for a while. So I'll try and get some inside, and also the speeder thing. The speeder, she was working.
Yeah,
with
she
speeders.
flew the one.
So I'll have a quiet word with her and see how that's going in real life and report back.
Ian's just looking forward to a decapitation. That's all Ian wants to see.
It'll be at the kneecaps, won't it? With some the E-gang will just take your legs off.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I know we haven't spoken about it. Before we go, why did all those drones fall into the Thames, Mark?
Before we do that, can I
Yeah.
put one more prediction in?
Yeah, go on then.
Because it's a lazy one because it's true every single year. The Gatwick drone narrative will unravel further.
But we'll still have no further answers.
Is that your equivalent of checking the drainage in the lower field?
Yeah. So what was this? A load of these drones went in the river, did they?
Yeah, we lost it. Can you get the video, Gary, or is it?
Oh, that was smack of being prepared. You know, I'm never prepared.
Well,
Come on, don't be unreasonable.
Did they push the battery limit a little bit too far?
No,
Because of a guy
You
called
look
Duncan.
I don't think it was battery. That's the interesting bit. So, as far as I'm aware, the company that flew them, if it is the company doing the test flight the day before, so it was actually the day before New Year, so it's very windy. The interesting bit is if you watch, if Gary does find the video, being unprepared as he is.
I found it. Hang on. Keep going. Keep talking.
So what's interesting is the drones start to descend. Now, people will say, oh, they're being jammed, this and the other. If you'll notice, it looks like they've gone into some sort of failsafe because they are descending with GPS because you can hear the wind on the camera and it's windy. So it's not a GPS error. It's something else. So who knows if they were practicing their emergency procedures is what I'm kind of suspecting. The drones were paused and then
2 fell in the water over there.
You would expect them to go into a form of landing, wouldn't you, in an emergency situation? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a group of them did. What's interesting is because it's recorded in a certain setting, not all the spots are actually drones in the sky because of the way the camera's recording.
Yeah.
There you go, see one descending, but it's a controlled descent.
Yeah.
So there's 1 or 2 that don't fall controlled, but they're far and few between. So I think
Here's the money shot.
Yeah, that's auto landing. That's a classic DJI. You're in an NFC zone, that is.
Now, bear in mind you're right opposite Parliament here. How many, and you've got the hospital as well there as well, so St Thomas's.
Yeah.
So given that...
that's
that
a
was going a bit fast.
Oh, kamikaze drone.
That's a prop loss, that was.
Yeah, I was going to say, the controlled landing. Please don't strike.
No, hang on. There's
It's
more.
glowing.
Yeah,
It still works underwater. It's cool.
there's another video then where a load of them come down together.
No, that's
Maybe
this.
it's the end of
It's
this.
this in a few seconds.
Is that?
So, could it be a signal failure from, well, they know down to failsafe?
no. Well, the thing is, what happens is with a swarm, what actually happens? There you go. There you go.
Whoa.
So I think someone at that point there, so at a certain point when you see them start suddenly and they just drop, someone had decided to kill the motors.
Yeah.
I think there had been a
But they're
motor.
drifting in the wind, aren't they? Because they were way upstream before. They've all drifted down. So was it a GPS failure?
No, well, the thing is, right, so how a swarm works for drone shows typically is you upload like you do a waypoint mission. So every drone knows where it needs to be. That's what happens. So all the drones on the grid know where they are, what they're doing. You then upload the mission and you launch the drones. and they will follow that flight path. Now, if they pause the drones, because that wasn't all 600. Remember, on New Year's they flew 600. Was this just a test batch testing their emergency procedures? Yeah,
I imagine there would be a stipulation because obviously fixed wing aircraft, you go over London. If you're in a helicopter, single prop aircraft, you have to follow the Thames up.
yeah.
Even the military do it.
So with a swarm, Brian, what's really important, you have a special permission. And in this permission, you will have a sterile area you're overflying.
Yeah.
So basically, they will have already had all this arranged. They will have the Thames cleared. They won't have anything on the Thames. They won't be overflying the public footpaths unless it's the route in and out to the show.
But they were overflying Bruce's public footpath there because plainly you can walk on the water.
So it's quite interesting. But if you watch the New Year's show on the BBC, when it gets towards the end, don't look at the main fireworks. You'll see the camera just slightly to the right. You want to watch that, and you can see the drones forming up in big grids to come in and land. So I think they were just testing their emergency procedures, testing a few drones to see how they handled conditions in rehearsal for the night before. And they would, if it's the company that I believe it was, they are good guys. They know their stuff. If they were going to lose a few drones, they would have been ready to lose a few drones, kind of thing. But it wasn't
better lose a few. Look like a bunch of idiots on New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve night. That's a lot cheaper option than it going completely wrong and name getting out there. So I would agree that's probably, especially that area. And not just that, if it was anything suspicious or anything going on down there, there's enough police in that area there that there would have been more blue lights. And obviously there was a boat over in the area over.
So, but like I say, if you actually watch the show, and what's interesting about that particular company is they design their own drone, a bit like I do. We do our own, but they only have this own bespoke software. So a lot of drone shows, they either use drone show software or using SkyBrush, which is open source, or they're using one of the pre-made softwares. They actually have their own software and own drone software as well for the quad.
I think it was the Froome company, wasn't it? That I can't remember their name.
I believe it was Sky Magic flying.
Oh, was it Sky Magic, not Celestial? I thought it was Sky.
It wasn't. Celestial was last year. This year was Sky Magic. And Sky Magic, they are the biggest fleets in the world. Sky Magic. So they did 60 days in Dubai. No, they. Bruce, trust me, right? That won't even scratch their output. They have a fleet where only certain drones can go to Australia, for example, for a show. So they are known to spend a lot of money just shipping drones around the world. But they have certain ones that can only go to Australia because that's where they're registered. The others can't. Saudi, they did 60 days of a shopping mall show every day for 60 days. They flew 500 or so drones. Oh yeah, they're good guys, and they're based in Leeds.
Yeah. I was going to say it's funny enough. I didn't even know that until you posted it, because so they must keep the profile pretty low, I guess. So I've not heard of them locally, but the only thing with that is it seems that still quite a lot of drones to ditch for a test. Well. If I was thinking about how much they cost, I'd be like 5. That's my max.
If they're making their own, they're 3D printing them. They could have done cheaper versions.
So, well, no. So that they because of the way the CA works, you have to you have the drones in the manual. They're the ones you have to fly. So this is the drone I have to fly in a swarm, for example. I can't fly any others. I have to fly this one and its friends.
And again, if you weren't deliberately doing it, you'd want to do it onto a net rather than what if you could. So I mean, it may well, but they've just said, "Well, right off."
Annette was probably busy; she was out partying.
It could be. Remember, it could be for many reasons. It might have been that their landing zone may have been compromised, and they had a problem there. And they went, "Actually, we can't bring the drones back safely, regardless." And they may have gone, "We have to do this emergency dump," and it would all be in their REMs. It's all in their procedures. They'd have just gone, "Right, we've got a problem at our home." Base.
Or could the wind have been too strong and they were trying to hold against the wind, but they were still drifting? And in the end, they said, drop them in the drink because we
drop
can't bring them back.
outside
It
limits.
could well have been. It could well have been.
To be honest, if the environmental fine's that big, they should have just crapped on them first. Because apparently, if you put crap in water, you get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. Now look, we have been going for nearly 2 hours here, gentlemen. That's just ridiculous. And I'm going to blame Brian because that was brilliant. That really was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, Brian, and giving us so much of your valuable evening. And good luck on everything you did with that, and well done on everything you did with that. And dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, you look after yourselves. Welcome to 2024. Bruce got there first, said it would be all right. Look after yourselves. We'll see you again next Tuesday, 2100 GMT. Who knows what will happen in the next 7 days? Take care, everyone. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.